Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF world champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Queen Divas podcast with my beautiful co-host, Stephanie Ayala McHugh.
Hello, everyone. Allie, it's so good to see you. And I feel like it's been a couple weeks already. And guys, we're trying to get back onto these little back onto the, rhythm of
more frequent, regular.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what? If we think about this, today's episode and topic is pretty fitting because one of the main reasons that, sometimes we don't get the chance to do it is because we've got so much chaos going on, both in, life, business, prep land, roadshow tours, like a lot of stuff going on. So Steph sort of raised this with me a few weeks back that, hey, you know what, maybe stress would be a great topic. And today's topic is now being brought to you to discuss, we're going to be discussing all things behind stress, the science behind it, how it affects the physical and mental health, and just really how we can better manage it, treat it, and prevent it.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, stress has been kicking my ass lately. And I feel like this has really been, like I told Allie, I'm like, let's just coordinate something, throughout the weeks, whenever we can. We've been literally trying to hop on these as best as we can. We obviously haven't done as good as we did in the first beginning, but now we'll just kind of get back on. We've been super hectic. Allie's been flying. We've been flying. We've just been, diving into more business, and with business comes a lot of pain, stress, as well as, less you time. And with that also kind of affects your mental state, right? Which I feel that also is a reason why I feel this topic is so needed, because stress is really something that everyone deals with differently. And it's really like, we feel like stress kills us, but it really isn't stress that kills us. It's really how we react to it and how we manage it. So that's what we'll be definitely discussing and digging a little deeper.
100%. And I think, look, one of the biggest things that we should probably start with is the fact that, stress is a really natural response. It's a necessary response even to the challenges and demands we have in life. And not all stress is bad, like having what we call eustress, which is a good level of stress, and you being EU, not YOU. Eustress is a really good level of stress. And that level of stress can help us to actually, it can motivate us to actually perform better and achieve our goals, driving us, with a little bit more focus towards something. But then we get into the case of, some not so good stress. And when it becomes chronic or overwhelming, that's when it can actually start to have detrimental effects on our health and well-being. And so, it's important to sort of just caveat that and say, not all stress is bad. We definitely need an element of it, but then there's this point that you reach, and it's like a crescendo that is just where, it's not so great anymore. Right. And we all have those moments. So don't feel like if you're sinking at the moment, because we all sink and swim at different stages in life, that you're alone or that there's something wrong with you. You're not. It definitely happens to the very best of people frequently. And sometimes, more often than we'd like to admit. And for people like me, I sometimes have these moments where I'm like, I don't think I'm stressed. I really don't think I'm fine.
Denial.
And I look at my data, and my data's like, bum, bum. Like Allie's got
just your heart rate, woman. It's like your
heart rate's through the roof.
Yeah, you can feel it.
It's elevated.
Exactly. Like, come on. No, I'm not stressed. What are you talking about? It's like the same reaction I think we all have when we have that denial state. We definitely all deal with that. Like Allie said, it's normal, but we all have to learn when is too much.
Yeah.
And when is enough, right? Because there's a balancing state. I feel like this is like that area where we have to find, what is something I can actually manage and something that becomes unmanageable. And I feel like that's just the question we have to ask ourselves is,
and remember,
what is causing the stress? Is it physical, or is it, emotional? Yeah. Is it something that is coming out, through my life? I don't know, relationships. Is it at work? Like, where is the stress coming from? And I think that that's also something to find the root of the problem, so then know how to manage that.
Yeah. And so I guess for everyone listening, firstly, let's probably go a little bit into understanding stress and how it can affect us, because stress is the body's response to any demand or challenge. When we perceive a threat or a challenge, basically our central nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system gets activated, which triggers the release of stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. These hormones prepare the body to be perceived in a, threat. So that's where we get the fight or flight. Anyone that's listening to this has probably heard this term, the fight or flight, mechanism. And it's literally been something that, and this is why stress is super important. It's protected us, right? We'd still be alive as a human race if we didn't actually have this, because we wouldn't know when instinctively to run from something like a dinosaur, or, stay and fight for our turf if someone was trying to take it over. Whatever the side of the coin is, which is where Steph was coming from earlier, it's not necessarily the stress, it's how you respond to it that will kill you, right? So if you're and I've talked about this actually in previous episodes, you guys would have remembered this when I'm talking about my chronic pain journey with my back. It was like living inside of a house that had a fire alarm that kept going off, because that was my flight mechanism, right? My sympathetic nervous system was so highly activated that whole alarm system was on, and I was living inside of a building with an alarm blaring 24/7 for years. So that can actually be a really great analogy for you to think about when you think about, the fight or flight mechanism and what it looks like when that sympathetic system is really on and stuck on for some people in a chronic state.
Yeah. And one thing that I really want to, touch on, because when we're in chronic stress, we don't realize how much our gut actually gets affected.
100%.
How our digestion goes. Like, actually changes our gut bacteria, right? Like, you're going to actually have some maybe stomach pain, some bloating, digestion issues, and you struggle with this, you might be looking at having too high of elevated cortisol levels. Obviously, it's going to mess with your adrenaline and cortisol hormones, which will then lead to weight gain, which then also has trouble sleeping. I don't know if anyone has that issue. For me, it was also a problem when I have high elevated cortisol levels. My sleep is shit. Like, it is so bad. I can't fall asleep. Like, you have that hyper focus on your tasks, the things that you need to do. Oh, I didn't get this done. And like, you start overthinking. And when you have that overwhelming sensation at night, your sleep is just going to be interrupted. You're not going to sleep well. You're going to toss and turn. So definitely having, those episodes, I think it's very important to kind of dive into. To dissect it. Is my high stress there? Your increased heart rate. I think this also really comes from too much caffeine.
Which is why I did my detox. Anyone who's following me, I'm currently on day 15. No coffee.
How are you feeling actually on
Fantastic. And my sleep is freaking amazing. Like, in all honesty, this was definitely the best thing that I could have done, because I do it regularly, sort of like twice a year. I do a complete caffeine detox for at least a month. And I find one of the first things that happens is I get crippling migraines and really bad, withdrawals for about 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Yep, real bad. And then after that, I kind of just start feeling better. And now I'm actually going to sleep faster, staying asleep longer, waking up refreshed, literally an hour and a half earlier than what I was, and dragging myself out of bed before. So
that's amazing.
Definitely could be something to look at if you're in a really chronic state that you're not necessarily just relying on caffeine to get through. But I tell you what, something really interesting, which might be super interesting for people listening to this. Well, first of all, let me just say this. Apart from it having effect, stress having an effect on things like weight loss and all the things that Steph just mentioned, it also can be, a lead contributor to heart disease, depression, anxiety, and also immune system disorders. But what I found fascinating was that research and literature shows that chronic stress can actually affect the brain structure and function. How full on is that? It leads to memory problems, cognitive impairment, and it even has shrinkage of the brain's prefrontal cortex, which is our complete little zone that is responsible for decision-making, problem solving, and impulse control. So if you're someone that does just crazy,
that's why you can't see clearly.
100%, right? So, this is when you see people have those knee-jerk reactions and those really outside the box personality explosions, maybe, just maybe, they're at the receiving end of this prefrontal cortex change. But how cool is that? Like, what the hell? And I was reading something else as well on the epigenetics side, which is where, chronic stress over time actually changes your gene expression, irrespective of your DNA sequence. How full on?
I believe it, because I feel like with stress, it's also like a reflection of a negative environment, not just, with a mindset. I think, of course, that has a lot to do with it, but like your actual surroundings, and that negative effect then also creates this anxiety, and then this also stress factor just goes up, and it just stays elevated, and you get normalized, and obviously thinking this is something how you live by. And like you said, I feel like then their gene could be obviously kind of different. I mean, I totally see that.
It's true, and it's crazy. I'm like, holy moly, I can't get over
For me,
that.
the biggest mind-blowing thing is the digestion part, or like just the way it changes your organs. For me, like liver produces extra blood, sugars whenever you're obviously higher in stress levels. It increases your risk of diabetes, and the risk, obviously of that is extremely high for a lot of us, with our diet needs having to be, something we don't really just pay attention to. I think that this is another thing. When we look at stress, we undereat, we chronically diet as well. So we're chronically dieting, and then we're chronically stressed. So it's just like two freaking big flames to make a massive fire. So I think that that's just another thing. Like, you downregulate your digestive system, and it's already being downregulated through your hormones and your cortisol levels being elevated. So overall, for me, I think that's just like where I get most mind blown, is how it really like just the trickle effect, right? Like from your
on everything,
to the gut, and then like it's all from stress. Like what? It's mind blowing. Nervous system.
That saying, you're a workaholic, you're working too hard, you're going to end up giving yourself a heart attack. There's actually some pretty good correlation to this, though. And studies have shown there's an absolute complete link to actual chronic stress and the development of, cardiovascular diseases. So including hypertension and heart attack and
guys,
strokes. Like imagine that. Imagine giving yourself a stroke because you just literally don't identify, observe stress, and manage it.
This is happening on a daily basis. And I have to address even here, this gets even more personal for me, but even like my mother has just been a very high stressed woman her whole life, always caring for others. And I feel like with the high stress, you're always just thinking of other people rather than yourself. And like, yes, you're thinking of yourself, but you're thinking of so many other things that affect, obviously how you respond to your stress, which then keeps you in this elevated state. So like for her, she actually deals with high blood pressure and has really, really, obviously just bad anxiety. She doesn't accept it. She's in denial. She just refuses to accept that she is in an anxious state. But I literally can monitor her and see all the symptoms, from even that, having the shaky type of, just elevated heart rate. You can see it in their palms of their hands, or that's of course a very, very, severe state, because this has been years. My mother is, 65. So it's definitely one of those things where it's more important to pay attention to, because if I can do everything to reduce those stress levels internally, through her diet, through exercise, which are things that we'll definitely kind of touch base on, is how we can kind of almost reverse this hypertension that she's
and
dealing
what
with.
will be really interesting for you to witness with mum as she's getting a little bit older too, we'll be looking at memory loss, because they've actually shown that high levels of the stress hormone cortisol getting released over chronic periods of time due to stress significantly affects the structure and function of the hippocampus. And that is a brain region crucial for memory and learning. So when you start getting forgetfulness, you start getting that brain fog, it might not necessarily be, what you think it is. It could actually be an indicator of, hey, you know what, idiot, knock, knock, you're actually stressed. Like, I know you think you're not, but here we go. Here's some signs of it, right?
Shut off.
Long term, it's just fascinates me, the changes in the brain as a whole, but in particular some of these regions where, like I said, we're getting predispositions then to having these longer term ramifications, like the memory loss, the changes in the prefrontal cortex, and then when we talked about the epigenetics before, some of the things that this can lead to. So these stress related changes and influences on the gene expression actually lead to epigenetic modifications that are linked to mental health, people. So how full on is that? This is 100%
disorder too, just because it doesn't mean necessarily every mental, disorder case has maybe high levels of stress. But if we really think of, building that, and I think that we're so susceptible to, build something with our autoimmune system, that it really is something like you said, genes can be obviously changed from
right.
chronic stress. I do believe that having, again, high levels of stress also goes into your skin and how that also translates, through your nervous system, through, of course, how your liver and your kidneys and everything being affected. You're going to maybe even have some eczema, have some psoriasis. These are things that we've been able to really kind of link from all, guys, stress. Crazy. It's ridiculous that this is what is killing us from the inside out, like literally, and trying to address it. And how do we reduce the stress, right? Like that's, I guess, the main question. Some people will do it with exercise, which is definitely another stressor that we have to kind of come to terms. Adding stress
because that's
to the body,
still stressing you, right? And adding to your cup. So maybe sometimes if your cup is already overflowing, stress might not be the immediate thing you, exercise might not be the immediate thing you do because it's going to add more stress. But I think starting first and foremost, I think the number one thing, which is what you identified earlier, right out of the gate of today's podcast, you mentioned identifying your triggers. Like that is your number one thing. It's like taking the time to actually reflect on, okay, what's my situation? Who are the people involved? What's my environment? What events that consistently keep turning up are the common denominator when I get to the point of burnout, crash, actual admission that I am experiencing on some level stress, right? What are the common denominators? What are these, what's the fabric here that's bringing it all together? Because identifying that is going to be the starting point and the key then to where you go to next. So, Steph, tell us a little bit about maybe something that you've identified over the years that might be a personal stress trigger for you. Just to give people some context here on what it looks like.
Right. So I think one of the bigger things that, can really stress someone out is, overall, I think everyone with their business, if they're an entrepreneur, right, like that's just one stress that everyone can probably relate to if they have their own business or they've started something and we're like, man, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. And this is a lot. This is just a one-man job, and then it becomes a two-man job. And then of course, managing other people and having, a team, you just kind of then start getting these high levels of stress that you weren't used to. Like you're used to operations, but for a company, right? Like at the end of the day, yes, you managed and you had to do, obviously some GM work, but it wasn't your company, right? Like, so it's not like at the end of the day, it's really going to matter if you, don't do 100%. There is no turn off. And I think this is where I struggle, right? Like I think I struggle a lot in the turning off mode. And because of that, my stress actually increased and accumulated. And this is the topic today. Like it kind of hit a reaching point that like, this boiling point has now, it hit his limit. And I had to recognize, where is this coming from? And I was in denial. I was totally in denial. I'm like, man, I just don't know where that's coming. It's not.
How did it turn up for you? Was it just the sleep initially, like the sleep issues initially, or like how did you?
I prioritize sleep so much that because we know obviously the pinnacle and obviously just how important it is, and I can't, man. I just can't function, man. If I don't have enough sleep.
She's like, you already know I'm not a morning person, Ellie. Jesus.
Don't know. I mean, no, seriously, I'm not a morning person. So anyway, no, it wasn't really so much of the sleep as much as it was falling asleep and not being able to shut off, like that shut off mode. I can't actually stop. What's wrong with me?
No, I understand.
Something is wrong if I can't actually take a break. Like there is something that is keeping me in this high alert state that constantly, and this is again, if someone can relate to this, you then feel like it's still not enough. This is ridiculous. You do so much. And then it's like, but yet there's so much more.
Could still do more.
And that then creates this extra stress that you're stressing about the future that's not even there. Let me tell you that. So then you're stressing on shit that hasn't even happened. You don't even know how the outcome is going to be. But so then
the way I always term this whenever I'm talking to someone is it's imagining your brain has too many tabs open. Like how slow
yeah.
your system runs once you've got all these
Totally good analogy.
too much
Yeah.
shit on your phone and all your screens are still there. Like
Close
tabs
down.
open. They don't shut down. They don't close out. It's just you're running about 50 programs all at once, and you're trying to be effective at one thing, but you're trying to do, yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. That is 100% how I would describe it.
Trying to do, you know, obviously some
many tabs,
writing, too many things at once, and you're trying to be it all and do it all. And we have to take a step back and realize that maybe what we've done is enough, and it's okay, you know, to maybe go a little slower, because the pace that you were taking was gassing you out. And I feel like that's essentially what I really did in some aspects, that the gas out within, and let's throw all of the competitions in the mix of this, right?
Exactly.
Then just never really shutting off, because I never really could. I was competing from back to back. It's been like literally nonstop aligned with my business. So yes, growing pains with that. I always kept telling myself, stress is good stress, you know, this is good stress, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like being busy, good busy, you know, there's, again, I'm blessed. And I was always extremely, you know, with this gratitude mindset, but at the same time, I was burning myself out to the point that, again, I just was not really filling myself back up, and got to the point that it really honestly just started affecting me more internally, like more just mindset. And then just, again, going into that feeling of, is this really not enough yet? Like, it's truly getting to a point that you have to realize, this is more internal for me now. So it was not even a physical or, physiological effect. It was more a psychological effect. And then that burnout feeling, and really, I guess this year it just kind of hit that boiling point, because then again, having to kind of give that announcement, and then I really couldn't let that sink in, and I was still just being super busy, and kind of really then realizing, you know what, guys, it came down to social media. A lot of the times I would feel that anxiety and that stress build up. And that was actually one of the areas where I found I had to step back. And I talked about this on one of the episodes at the beginning of the year. I had to take a break because I was just overwhelmed. It was just something I'm like, I'm not happy being on here right now. This makes me sour. This definitely is something where I'm like, oh, this is a burden, and I don't have to. Why do I have to feel like I have to be here? Like I have to show up for what? Like, again, to show up for myself first, right? And we ask ourselves that, are you really showing up to social media? And this is obviously a different topic, but are you showing up because you think you have to? Or are you showing because you want to?
Yeah, exactly.
And that is just a question that I really then had to ask myself. And then it just started getting better. And then I'm like, you know what? Now I just have to get back to work. Honestly, now
it's very better. It's actually really good how you talked about that, because okay, I guess we could throw in the last 2 weeks for me. I had a situation where we got some news. It wasn't what we were expecting. I had to go through some personal stuff, and I had to have a procedure done. I couldn't train for a week. Like all these things that would normally be my stress relievers that I couldn't use. And I'm the same as you. So social media for me for the last 2 weeks has been meh, like I've really not really been, I've been haphazardly present. My posts have been pretty average. I'm like, my engagement's lower because of it. Like, do I really care? No. And this was the thing. My response was the same as yours. I'll internalize, I'll step back. I won't necessarily be as present, because I'm actually dealing with the things that are actually causing me stress, and I'm processing it. I'm working my way through it. So I'm raising that for two reasons, because it's showing you that stress hits everyone differently. We all respond differently. In Steph and Mai's case, which is probably why we're best mates, we actually respond quite similarly. But that doesn't mean most people would, right? I've been on a coffee detox, not drinking alcohol. And I'm still on a diet plan, right? I know most people that would have dealt with what I've just gone through and gone and eaten all the pantry, drunk all the wine, probably done some drugs. Like I'm telling you now, I know they would have. And that's just not my path. It's not the way I've responded. Is there anything wrong, particularly with the way anyone responds? Look, as long as they're not doing self-harm or harming others, each to their own. I really don't care. I have no judgment. But my point here is that we all do respond differently. And it does come down to, I guess, our level of self-awareness, and also our level of trauma, perhaps, maybe I want to throw in there, and whether or not we've been self-healed, as to whether or not we're going to either nurture ourselves through stress, or we're going to self-destruct and numb ourselves through stress. There's kind of, that's what I see as
don't
two
hide
different
it.
flows.
Yeah, it's hard because you nailed
it really is. And this sort of stuff is probably one of the main reasons I went into the study that I'm currently doing, because A, I think there's a big gap for it, and B, you know, looking at some of the modalities that can be applied actually to support people through really highly stressful and overwhelming periods in their life. That's definitely something that I'm interested in, right? So,
oh man, I'm interested to keep following your journey on it, because it's something that we all need to learn how to, you know, what is it and how do we cope with it and how do we manage it? Because this is the thing, are you coping or are you reducing the stress levels? If you're just coping with the stress levels that you currently have, that just means that you're in a way, you know, kind of okay, I can juggle it. I'm here.
Yeah, you think you can do it all no matter what, right?
Right? Like this is me. This is me, right? With the head above water. Like there, I'm making it.
Just trying to survive.
Just trying to make it, right? But are you actually reducing the stress levels where that lowers and that actually truly comes down to a place that is balanced, not where you're balancing whether if you can breathe, like actually trying to reduce it to where you're in control of, again, we can't control what happens in life by any means. There's no way that you can, you know, have any idea.
No, you can't. You absolutely
can't happen, or that you'll lose your job, or, you know, that you'll have a family member be ill, or something that is just inevitable and you can't help what happens in life.
Last Monday, not this Monday just gone, but last Monday, we're driving home from an appointment we were in where I was having a procedure done, which meant I couldn't train for the week. So we get a phone call, and it's my mother-in-law who's literally just been held at gunpoint by a rifle to her, you know, abdomen by a junkie that's just stolen their car, right? Like, it was unbelievable. He turns up at a house and does this. So we've just gone through what we've just gone through. We're in the car and we're sort of discussing our situation and processing things. And then we get that phone call and it's like, holy shit. All right, what do we do with this? You know? So you're so right. We couldn't control what was happening to us. We couldn't control what happened to her. We're in two completely different states. Like, you literally just have to control you and take care of
you. Breathe. I mean, I know that sounds so cheesy, but
it is true. It is actually true.
Breathe.
It is actually true. And, you know, speaking of that, actually, one of the majors that I'm doing in my, you know, course is actually around mindfulness, and it's a mindfulness-based methodology and protocol that can be applied to stress reduction, trauma, a whole bunch of things. And there's actually been research showing the effectiveness of this particular protocol, and it's actually gaining a fair bit of traction. And a lot of this is about looking at, you know, like incorporating, I guess, a few different modalities, but that whole concept of meditative / state, and then breathing to regulate the heart, the space, the stress.
I just did a whole blog on
really
this. Like, I was releasing it next week. So it's so funny.
It's just really high. So this is one whole, you know, little rabbit hole I'm going to go down in the study, but there's reasons for it. And look, you know, I think in those moments, all you really can do is stop, acknowledge whatever you're feeling, acknowledge whatever the situation is, control whatever variables you can control to support whoever is going through it, if it's not you, yourself personally. And then it's literally taking a moment to stop, breathe, analyze, go internal, connect with body. You know, it will lower your heart rate. It will reduce the stress. It will completely turn the volume on that fire alarm right down to a quiet hum rather than a deafening roar.
That's right.
It's not going to stop it. The stress is still there, but it's going to allow you to live in that space without losing your goddamn mind.
Clearly. Right? Exactly. You can think clearly when you actually breathe. And I feel when you're breathing, that technique, and I again feel cheesy saying it, but that's the first thing I have to tell myself, Stephanie, breathe. Like,
exactly.
Breathe, because the moment that you start feeling that overwhelming feeling of just stress rising, and it's natural. You get the, you know, clammy hands, the sweaty palms, and like you start getting that heart rate pick up, and you just start actually panicking. If you start panicking, what happens? You actually make an irrational decision. You don't think clearly. You think, oh my gosh, what's the most, I guess, that quickest thing that comes to your head? And it's probably not the best idea. So actually,
no, usually not.
Yeah. So if you have that kind of episode, and then no, that's not a panic attack. It's just, again, something that's happening that you
Do you
don't
know what
know.
I always think about whenever I think about this? I have this memory because actually most people on this podcast probably won't know this, but I'm not at the moment because Christos is terrified of sharks. Let me digress for 1 second. Like
Really?
literally terrified to the point where when we go to the beach, if he goes deeper than his knees, he almost combusts into a little ball of smoke because he's terrified the shark's going to come get him, right? So now I was an avid diver. I would go diving from Friday afternoon through to Monday morning on a boat. I'd do night dives. I've done my rescue medic. I've logged a lot of dives. I've dived in every country I've been to.
The rescue life.
I love diving, right? I started this journey when I was in university, and I literally didn't stop until I met Christos. And for the last 10 years, I have not gone diving, which kind of semi-crushes my soul. But anyway, I will get back to it one day. He's terrified if I go out there, I'm going to be eaten. And with good reason too. Let me say
this. You can go diving, no worries.
So let me say this one time, this makes me think of this. This is the breathing always comes back to this. I get this vision. I am actually diving off of the coast of California. I must have been 21 at the time. And this is my first time diving with deep sea kelp, like it's what we call an underwater rainforest, right? It's like, it goes all the way down the bottom. We were quite deep and we're around this little rock. Anyway, I'm diving with buddies, and they were actually ex-Navy SEALs. So they had the suits where they actually had their heads not in any kind of water with a speaking device. They could speak to each other. I was the only one that didn't have that. So anyway, they're talking to each other, and the next minute they're like motioning all these motions to me because we look above and there's all these seals. Now, what eats seals?
Seals are not good.
Right.
Sharks are around. That is their food.
Really massive shadows going in and around the kelp. And I just started freaking out, right? Now, the worst thing is this. When you're that far down and you're that deep down, you can't just rise straight to the top or you'll get the bends. So you have to come up and sit at certain points for 2-3 minutes at that point. And you're just like a big, sealy, piece of meat that
you look like a seal
want to eat. And you're out and you're exposed and you're just like stuck. Right. So here I am having this moment. They're telling me I've got to surface. They got all of the signals and I know exactly what they're saying, that there's a big bloody shark out here somewhere. And all I could see were these freaking shadows, and my tank was nearly on empty and I wasn't going straight to the top. So I had to literally in that moment stop myself and breathe and think about inhale, hold, longer exhale than an inhalation, hold out, and then back in. And I had to do the full diaphragmatic breathing while under extreme stress. I swear to God, my heart rate's probably never been higher than it did in that freaking moment. And 4 stops to get to the top.
That's definitely probably the highest heart rate I would have probably had to do.
It literally, and then as we got to the top, we got onto the boat and it was sunsetting, which we didn't even realize. We lost track of time. Sunsetting is also sunset and sunrise, by the way, for everyone that needs to know, this is feeding time, frenzy time. And I'm in the middle of a bunch of seals. Like, what do you do? So we don't have seals in Australia. I don't have these things to worry about. It's only freaking over there.
I just said my prayers and just thanked God for the life he gave me.
I literally thought I was going to die. I just thought I was this big shark. So anyway, that moment for me is what I always think about when I think of high pressure cooker, need to bring my heart rate down, need to actually de-stress. I go right back to that moment in the middle of that freaking kelp, thinking about the shadows that were swimming past me, dying on the inside, thinking that's it. I'm being ripped into 3 little pieces and I'm about to be shark food. Like, that's my moment. So anyway,
apparently once they bite us once, they just kind of spit us out.
Right, or we just lost a leg.
They don't like our taste.
Would have been on stage with a bionic leg. Great. But my point is that the diaphragmatic breathing and the slow, that breathing that slows things down really does work. And I ended up getting to the surface, obviously, clearly, safely, without being shark food, and live to tell the tale and remember it to this day. It didn't stop me from diving at all. So again, when I think you have control over a situation that can leave you you can exit it and you can be negatively scarred for life, never return to that situation and avoid it forever. Or you can just literally learn some great solid foundations, like never ever go diving at sunset near kelp and seals.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
I think that's a good lesson. I think for anyone listening out there that's going to plan on diving, do not go diving at sunset. I mean, I'm taking
breathing helps.
I like the diving idea. I think that's just dope. Like something I will do with you. So
we need to do this. We will you know what? We'll do this more in the Bahamas next time you come across to the Bahamas house.
Yes, you got me at Bahamas.
It's apparently beautiful there, and I haven't got to go yet, so we'll definitely do that. And then I think, one of the other things that you can do when we're talking about the ways that you can practice relaxation techniques, it's not just down to breathing. Meditation's a great one, and meditation doesn't always have to be woohoo guru sitting with your legs crossed and your little pointy the thumb out there like that. You don't have to be humming all sorts of pranayama. But you do need to be just focusing for a few solid minutes on something that is a singular point of context. So there's a really easy thing to do, which for some people that find meditation hard, I think this is a really cool thing to do. Sit in the sun or sit somewhere where you're comfortable. You can lay if you want to, but sitting, I think, is always, pretty cool because you can do it anywhere. And no one even needs to know you're actually meditating at the time you're doing this. Put your focus on one particular point in the horizon and just literally look at and only take in everything about that one point. So you're focused on one thing. That's literally a form of meditation.
Yeah, I do this with nature. I honestly just recommend for anybody to just literally step outside. It doesn't matter if it's cold, hot, actually focusing on those things, focusing on the temperature being cold. How does your skin feel? Exactly. How does the breeze feel on your skin? You being present. And I know this sounds like again
woohoo, but it's not.
Kind of it's spiritual stuff. No, we're just really referring about you being aware, being present with yourself. And actually, for me, nature just brings this gratitude sensation and then just calms me. So the sun or the trees or even as much freaking allergies I'm getting right now with the pollen in the air, the grass, it's annoying with just my sneezing and stuff, but I can definitely tell you it's one of the things that makes me even more present. If the more I start sneezing, because I'm like, damn, there's a lot of pollen out here. And just overall, instead of being mad about it, I'm like, well, this is seasons change, and how seasons change and how do we react to those seasons? That makes you start thinking of the feelings you get with every season. Then you start thinking of the grass being mowed, and I'm we're in spring here now, and it's nothing but grass smells around. And it's what do you smell? What do you feel? What do you see? And all those things just make you, again, calm, because then you're almost being grateful that you have two arms, two legs, that you can be out gives you, just for that 2 minutes.
It gives you a way to be present without it being in some formal, stiff, meditative practice. If you struggle with that, right? It's a different kind of connection. But I think that's a great example. So there's a few different options for you. There's a few different ways you can get that meditative response without actually having to feel like you need to be the next freaking, Dalai Lama.
You don't have to meditate. You're not even into any of that. You don't
of the Dalai Lama. We both know how much I love my yoga, and I really, really do. So yoga for me is incredibly.
Tell us the quote.
Relaxation based, and for me, yoga is just restorative, and it really challenges me.
Yoga's a great one. I love it.
Sit within myself, and it really challenges me not to run from my shit, but instead to process my shit. So if that might be uncomfortable for you, then you may not like yoga, but I love it for that. And so this last week, that's literally, I couldn't do formal training, but what I could do was some restorative based yoga. So where do you think I was for 3-4 of the days? Yoga class.
Oh, you were zenning. You're a zen.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think for me, one of the other ones that really helps a lot, and if I can't train, which I always find, and this goes back to what we said, training is a good stress that we apply to the body. But if you are extremely chronically stressed, adding more stress physically is not good for you. So anything that raises your heart rate, elevates your heart rate, or puts you in a high intensity state, right? Even with, strength training, it does put a little more stress on our muscles. So then it takes more time to recover. It just adds a lot more stress for us to deal with. So with that being said, a low intensity mobility stretching session is fantastic because you really just are able to increase the oxygen that goes to the muscles, which then relaxes the muscles. You know, we usually have tense and cramped muscles when we're super stressed out too. We don't realize.
Definitely can. I don't know if
like stress neck. I don't know if you guys have cramp in your neck.
Have you ever had a situation? Have you ever had a situation, Steph, where you haven't actually trained for some reason for a few days or maybe a week, or maybe when you had your injury with your foot, and then you have someone press on something somewhere completely unrelated and you're like, holy shit, that is so tight. And I don't understand why my thoracic is not moving right now, or my neck has wry neck because I haven't literally lifted a weight. But that literally is correct. Stress will be stored inside of the muscular and, frame. So you will have those sorts of symptoms come up. And
it's like an accumulation of tension, and that tension here, then it's like, man, why do I have a headache? If you'll even lead to some migraines if you kind of actually have this neck tension as well, just because your muscles are extremely tight, which to me, again, stretching and doing some mobility, like some foam rolling sessions, some trigger point, just release, just really helps. Or if you want to go into some therapy and actually do some acupuncture, or even do obviously something that is going to help alleviate your muscle tense. If you're having maybe those kind of symptoms, if you aren't having a physiological kind of effect of like having stress too elevated, and you can just go work out, to me,
then work out.
My like, I guess therapy is really being able to train and exert some of that stress out of my body by releasing it through exertion. And I feel like people really undermine how powerful strength training or just exercise
100%
is to reduce stress levels, reduce anxiety, and cures depression, y'all. It's the best
absolutely.
And it's just one of the things that if we use it as a tool, not as a, burden, like we're just burning ourselves, like, to the ground, because you're thinking training is the answer to get your, physique or, weight loss goal. It's more about using it as an outlet. And if you really think of it as therapy, right? Like that's my session to exert some of my anger or some of the stress, whatever emotional battles you may be having, even, it's kind of almost being able to, release that through the training. And it helps tremendously. I think one of my favorite quote here, and I'm just going to mention it here because it's by the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I feel like he said it the best. And, training gives us an outlet for suppressed energies created by stress, and thus tones the spirit, just as exercise conditions the body.
I love that.
I find that is just so true. It's I mean, kudos to,
for anyone listening to this, because if they want to geek out on it like I do, it stimulates the release of endorphins. So it's literally like having a natural antidepressant, right? Every single time you move, no matter what it is you're doing. So if you're having a down day, you're having an unmotivated day, literally one of the best things you can do is still turn up, because what you'll find, I was having this conversation with a client literally an hour before we got on this podcast recording, where we were discussing the fact that motivation wanes and drivers and challenges in our life can often, be a blanket that can squash the energy and the excitement and the motivation for something. But if you still throw the freaking blanket off and turn up, even if you think you're only going to do a 60% level session, 9 times out of 10, what you end up finding is you get into it, your grit comes through, and you end up having some of the best sessions you've ever had in your life.
That's so true, man.
Some of the best. And you walk out of the gym and you're like, man, I feel so much better. Like my mood is so much better. Everything, I've got more energy for the rest of the day. Like it positively impacts you, even though you might have walked into there with a negative frame set about it initially. You will literally 9 times out of 10 walk out of there 10-fold better than you walked in. So it should still turn up. And this is where we talk about habits and routines and rituals that you get yourself established in, so that when you have days where challenges are abundant and you are feeling like you're drowning, taking those 30-minute sessions or 60-minute sessions, whatever you can afford time-wise for yourself, to turn up and do those things still and tick those boxes and just, focus on your health, prioritizing and looking at it from a health perspective, you're going to always walk out feeling so much better for it. And you will 100% be contributing to reducing the likelihood of you having any of these diseases and comorbidities that we've talked about. Like, it's like planting the seeds that you'll, for your crop to harvest it later, right? Those little seeds you plant today, well, they're going to prevent you from having an illness later. So you want to always be thinking about everything you do today, even on the days you don't feel it. And even when you think, I don't have time, it's rubbish. You actually do. You're just not prioritizing it. Still prioritize it. Still stick to your habits, your routines, and your rituals.
Yes, if you still are sitting around, worried, if you're worrying, if you have time to worry, you have time to go to the gym. Okay. If you have time literally to sit there and overthink and like overwhelm yourself with the future that hasn't happened yet. And just, I don't know what it is about the human mind that just, we try to assume we already know what's to happen, right? We like perceive that outcome. And then we think, oh, it's going to go either this way or that way. And we just kind of like already, either fail or succeed. And it's crazy. Like, we won't do something unless we think we're going to be successful. And it's mind blowing to me that so many people be held back because they're just, oh, it's not going to work, or it's going to take too much time. It's just, just not doable, whatever. You just build these false, stories to yourself, and you think that the outcome. Oh no, I won't be successful because of this, and like, I think that we need to really assess and just look at ourselves and ask, like, is it truly stress that's, making me feel this way, or is it overthinking? Because I felt I've had to ask myself that, and multiple times. And it's like, is it actually, I'm stressing about stress and being stressed, if that makes sense? Like, what is wrong? Like, am I overthinking about being stressed? And I think I'm stressing myself out, right? And if that is you, like that overthinker, or just sitting there and just, again,
perfections.
We totally talked about it, right? That is just one of the things that you have to release. You actually have to go and exert and take action and start thinking. And it's one of the, places that I find is our us time. It is your you time. It's your therapy. So if you haven't already made, the efforts, and I'm sure most of our listeners go to the gym and are at least, doing some stuff already for themselves. But this is one of the rituals and routines that we have to create, from day to day. If it's stress from work, stress from relationships, this is you away from all of that. This is your outlet. So
and I think to add to that, during complete times of, because sometimes stress can make people completely shut down. When that happens and you feel like, okay, I literally just can't fathom going and doing that resistance-based session, still move and focus on movement, but maybe just pivot and find something that you really enjoy and that you find joy in. So it might be, go and jump onto your friend's indoor soccer team and play a couple of games. Go and hike through the mountains with your partner or your girlfriend or your kids. Go surfing, like do whatever it is that's really not in your routine per se normally, but still has you moving, still has you connected to yourself and detaches you from all of the overwhelming thoughts that are currently consuming you, but doesn't completely make you stagnant and a couch potato, right? So sometimes finding something that might be a little bit less intense or a little bit less, I think restrictive. If you feel restricted to a gym, then that can also be something that might unlock in you a little bit of relaxation, right? Just think about that. Think about it being something that maybe you just find joy in, or something a pursuit that you love. You might even be going to a dance class, like whatever it is, but just go do that for a little while. And then once you're back into the rhythm, get back into your normal routine, perhaps.
Yeah. And for me, I also like to, if I ever have elevated seasons or, phases, that it's kind of, again, maybe inevitable to have loads of like work. Like, let's put example that there's going to be seasons that there's just like no way around having less stress, and you're going to have to navigate how can I manage reducing my stress levels. There's really no way around my life right now. This is work, there's the kids, there's my business or whatever you have all going on, and you might be even competing on top of that, in trying to do other things as hobbies. So if that is you and you're like trying to actually reduce naturally your stress levels and cortisol levels, I personally will actually take cortisol management, just supplements. Ashwagandha is a fantastic supplement that is out there that you can take, plant-based, and it really does help reduce your cortisol levels. I personally also take Calm, has great magnesium. It actually has HTP purity, which is also known in the Chinese medicine world as a plant herb that helps with anxiety, with, patients that usually deal with, just having more overwhelming or higher state of anxiety. And that just is one of the things that, to me, it becomes like a ritual. It's like a nightly ritual. I'll take my Calm, I'll take my ashwagandha, I'll even mix in some extra magnesium in there to get some good sleep. And I think for you, you've done like ZMAs, right? Like we've talked about that. Yeah. And it's just really helpful because I am in that elevated state and I do need a little extra boost and I need some help, and I can't really change my life all the time, and you have to deal with what's out in front of you. So if you are in a place where you're needing maybe some supplementation, I always just recommend, instead of taking an aid, which some people will resort to, like just medication, just doing it naturally through, with some plants and herbs. Like, to me, that's usually my go-to.
And I think that's a really great segue into our fourth tip, which is adequate sleep, So we've talked about identifying your stresses. We've talked about, some of the relaxation elements that you can move into. We've talked about exercise, and that's, the impact that and the role that it has on reducing stress, but also can be a contributor to stress. But going on from that, getting enough sleep and getting adequate sleep. And we've done an entire segment on this. So, you can always go back and find it. We delve really deep into the parameters of sleep, but literally, if you have increased stress levels, if you have high cortisol levels, and if you are finding it really difficult, you've got too many tabs open in the brain, sleep is going to be challenging for you. And you should be looking to get at least 7 to 9 hours. 9 hours for a lot of people, they'd be listening to that and going, shit, that's 3 nights sleep for me. But we should be getting between 7 and 9 every single night.
Listen here, if you do not a minimum of 8 hours, I will get onto you if you're one of my clients, because literally, if that is you at 6, if you are doing the 4 to 6 and that's normal to you, let me tell you, we're starting there. You need to improve your sleep right off the get. No matter if you're not stressed out or not, you will just get so much better results in every aspect of life. But also just knowing that all athletes or high stress level, individuals need that actual recovery period for you to function. Otherwise, you
how the brain
zombie
also
mode.
How the brain processes too. So the brain, has its little filing system that gets done during the night while you sleep, and it detoxes and flushes and it cleanses itself during the night, which is super important for your cognitive function, your memory function, like so many factors that you need day to day. It's like it's the brain closing things down, right? It needs to do that. If you've got too many tabs open and you're trying to get through your day, you're going to struggle. But I guess we don't want to go into it too much because we've done a whole segment on it, but quick pointers would be that, keeping an established routine around your sleep. So trying to sleep and wake around the same time within an hour every single day, whether it's weekday or weekend, is a great tip. Keeping blue light, down, the exposure, turning everything off the blue light. You can do the dimmers. There's, things you can do with your phone. You can wear the glasses, trying not to be on screens past a certain point in time, trying to actually have a meal no later than the, sunset, or not much later than sunset from a circadian point of view, keeping it 2-3 hours away from sleep time, using, music, using white noise, using meditation. For me personally, I just need to get into bed with my blue light glasses and read a physical book, a couple of chapters every single night before I go to sleep, and I'm out like a light.
Oh yeah. So, that one, anyone that's listening here, that's the key, y'all. Like, if it's not the TV will keep you up. Next episode, you're like on a cliffhanger and you're like trying to figure out what happens. So that's gonna just keep you up. And then social media on your phone, as you know, is just gonna keep you scrolling. You'll just get addicted to whatever the trend of TikTok is happening, and you're just literally going to continue watching video after video. Exactly. So making sure that you're actually doing something that stimulates your brain, like Ali had even said, the reading, that is my absolute go-to. If I know I need to create that routine and ritual, it's like just having that book next to your bed, and it's going to allow you to really just, honestly, for me, it's a few sentences and I'm like, I'm done, because the book will fall on my face. I'm done, down, out, right?
And actually, on that note, I don't know about you, but I'll just quickly caveat this. I cannot do any of my study close to bedtime because my brain is just like, boom.
It's more for fun. It's like, let me read,
something thriller, horror, like completely non-fiction. like just complete escape
Sick
stuff.
woman.
Yeah, I know I am. I'm a complete sicko. All the gore.
Oh my God. Mine is literally just very light and sometimes it's
romantic
like,
comedies.
yeah, it's not even so much novels as much as it's me just honestly reading things
Anything
like
physical.
of the mindset,
Yeah.
just actual book. Like it could take me forever to finish that book if it's the one by my bed. If it's a book I'm actually trying to read, or like, I will actually want to it's definitely away from the bed.
I can't
be next to the bed. No. I think that also another great nightly ritual besides the reading is just the power of being able to take a shower. People don't realize like a nice warm bath and just being able to decompress your muscles, just feel clean and get yourself in bed. I think everyone just kind of can relate maybe to just be having that refreshing feeling and then just being able to knock out. And hopefully by that point, you've taken care of yourself. I feel like that just always reduces stress, and maybe it creates more stress if things are, oh, I'm out of this, or maybe you didn't have certain things, but that's just another thing that we're having to realize. Are you actually creating more stress within your life because of the way you're reacting to your circumstances? Remember this, guys, like it's not what we're given to us, it's what we have, and that's what we have to use. Don't keep thinking of what you don't have. I feel like so many people, it's like, I don't have this, or, grass is greener on the other side, which then keeps you in this stressed, position all the time, thinking you don't have enough.
Well, it just keeps you in a state of jealousy. You really are living in a constant state of, well, actually, let's be politically correct here. It's actually a state of envy. It's when you're a state of enviousness, when you're actually in comparison to what someone has that you don't have, but you want, and you would prefer that you had it over them. That's actually a state of envy, and that's how most people operate. But it's a 7 deadly sin for a reason, people. You don't want to live there. It's not good for you. It's not a good space.
No, cut that shit out. Don't do that.
Go to church. I'm joking. Look, you are right. It's not going to, comparison is a thief of all joy and all success, because it holds you back and it doesn't unlock your true potential because you're too worried about someone else's. Like you really, don't want to live in that trap. But I think this does go into our next and final tip for how to probably manage stress. And like this is probably, again, another key part as to why I'm doing what I'm doing study-wise, but it's being able to talk to people. It's being able to seek out support. It's being able to encourage, a safe space for conversation, and to be able to be in a position where you're with someone you trust, if not a complete professional in the field, but where you have that capacity to share those stresses or those concerns and then communicate how you're feeling or not coping, and maybe discuss potential strategies, discuss the way behaviors might need to change from the people that might be part of your triggers. It's being able to actually process through the stress rather than numb, avoid, and run from the stress is probably my key takeaway.
I love that, because we can't do these things alone, guys.
Oh God, no.
You can't just like simmer and, obviously sit in all these emotions or stress that does end up killing us when we bottle it up.
100%.
You can't bottle it up. You have to overcome it by, again, learning how to react to it rather than overreacting.
Exactly.
Taking a moment, breathing, calming yourself down, reassessing your situation, your emotions. Is it irrational? Is this actually something that needs to be done? Or is it something I want? Or does it, is need? I think a want and a need, we have to keep reminding ourselves that there's things that we think we need or think we want, and we have to kind of assess which one, what is, what we're really doing there. And go
one
ahead.
One of my favorite sayings, and I've said this ever since I was a kid, actually, and I think it's probably something that one of my grandparents said to me, and it's just stuck with me forever. A lot of the times we're in these chronic states of stress, and you touch on it with the comparison side of things, and it probably sits within that family of thinking, is that we think we don't have enough yet, or we think we haven't attained a certain point, or we think that what we've been channeling our energy to our desires on that's what should come our way. That's what we're destined to do. And then it doesn't happen, right? And for whatever reason, something different happens or presents itself. It's a different path, or if it's a different person or a different job or a different something different to the construct we painted in our minds of what the world would be and what our life would be, right? And at that point in time, we go into this spiral of overwhelming stress because we think that we're failing, or that, you know, how could we possibly not get what we wanted, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I remember this saying, and it stuck with me ever since, is that thank God for unanswered prayers. Because quite often when we have the situation where we don't get the one thing we thought we should get, if we view that the right way and we respond in the right way and we look for the silver lining and we find the learning or the lesson or the new opportunity or the new path, we're probably walking in a better direction and the one that was truly meant for us. And we get to the end and we get substantial more wealth and prosperity and joy from it. But it's only if you're open to the fact that there's not just one path for you to walk. There may be many. And just because something doesn't go the way you think, don't let that stress consume you and derail you. Instead, try to look for what the new opportunity is providing you. So I guess that's just something that stuck with me my whole life. It's the way I view nearly freaking everything that happens in my life. And it's probably the reason that people find me incredibly, annoyingly optimistic. But you know what? I love sitting with that as my foundation.
Hey, that's why we obviously get along so well. It's all about, you know, overcoming and being so positive in everything that we do. It's like, it's not why me, it's like, try me.
Yeah.
Right. And all of that really resonates with your perspective. If you don't have the perspective of assessing your surroundings and actually ask, what lesson am I supposed to learn from this? What am I actually supposed to gain out of this situation? That is a hard life lesson, whether if it's, you know, having illness or having some type of injury, or maybe stressed out at work because there's just so much going on in your workspace. Maybe you're just really, really overwhelmed with an emotional relationship, and it's just something that's stressing you out. And I don't know, you got a cheating husband or boyfriend all these things, right? Like that causes, girl, I think like that to me, when not obviously me, I'm blessed to have Carrie. I'm just saying, as far as seeing what others have to go through and the stress 100%. That causes. Like, I think that actually is one of the bigger also, you know, precursors as to self-sabotage and all of the other things that, you know, just get affected from just a very, very bad relationship.
But again, that's not something that's in your control, right? Like someone else's behavior is not in your control. So you just got to continue to remember that. And again, thank God for unanswered prayers. Maybe he's showing you a better person somewhere else, and you just got to let that chapter close, right? So kind of got to look at it like that. But look, I guess to recap on this, we've identified that stress is a normal and natural and necessary response to our day-to-day challenges in life. And it's not something we can ever avoid. Everyone's going to have it. It's just the levels of it and how it impacts us and how it plays out for us individually varies, right? So when it becomes chronic or overwhelming, it can have detrimental effects on our health, well-being, physical well-being, and also our mental well-being. And by identifying our stresses, applying relaxation techniques, practicing those, exercising, getting the right type of exercise, getting enough sleep, and then reaching out for support if you need it, we can better manage it, treat it, and even prevent it. So taking care of your mental health, people, is absolutely essential, you know. So that's what today's episode's about.
We've been doing. We've been doing that lately. You know, we've been really focusing on reducing our stress levels, managing what's on our plate. And I hope anyone out there that has maybe stressed out, maybe feeling overwhelmed, or dealing with any of these things we talked about today, has maybe felt a little sense of relief of knowing that you're not alone.
No, you're not.
There are a lot of things that you can be doing, you know, on your own to really reduce those levels, and maybe just, you know, take a moment, take a break. It's okay to be off. No one is forcing you to do whatever you feel is, you know, an obligation. I mean, of course, we all have obligations. We're all adults here, but we don't have to do the things that are maybe causing that stress. And if we can eliminate them, get it out of your life, and re-implement it, and, you know, obviously learn how you can manage that back in.
Absolutely.
I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I really love today's topic because, like I said, it was something I've been dealing with. I know Ellie has also been dealing with, and hopefully you guys can also, you know, get some tips.
Hopefully you can relate to some of what we said. I hope you found a bit of, you know, moments of funnies in some of the things we said. And more importantly, I hope we gave you some tools and, you know, tricks to maybe help better manage your own. But we'd love to hear from you. Please share this episode if you love it, and especially share it with a friend or a family member that you think could really benefit from this one. Anyone that you know you've identified is probably struggling a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit like we get sometimes. They're actually stressed. They'll tell you they're not. They have no freaking clue, but really they are. Send them this link. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you.
Be a good friend.
Exactly. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks, Jake.
All right. Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.